So when we are doing working in family law software, and what I am showing you here is the cloud version that is going to be released tomorrow. This has a slightly updated interface. So instead of the tabs on the top and then the individual tab menus down the side, it's all down the side here. And so this would correspond to the tabs that we had before. You'll find most everything the same. Few little tiny details we made, changing the state and getting the sample file a little higher up here. But we have a new interface with the file manager, which is now going to allow you guys to access files much more easily, be able to search for files. So we have the files that I've created. Shared files are the ones the client created. And then the all firm files, if you have the firm cloud edition, would allow you to see all the other, all the attorneys in the firm who are generating files and be able to search for them either by the name of the file or by the owner or by the date. We also have a new history feature, which allows you to see who worked on the file when and for how long, which I kind of love because sometimes I forget to write down how long I spent in a file and for billing purposes. I'm sure none of you do that. It'll also allow you to archive files, and both your files and the ones the client created. And then it will also show you all the backups. So that is also very handy. And this new file manager feature is in the beta. You could get it today if instead of going to pro.fls.com, you go to beta.flsgo.com, and the files are still your files, so they'll show in either version, the beta or the pro. And then this is scheduled now to be released tomorrow, and will be the regular version tomorrow. So if you log in pro.flsgo.com tomorrow, this is what you're going to see. Okay, so let's get started on an overview of the program. Let's start with the idea of entering data. Of course, everything starts with the data, and garbage in, garbage out. So what is the best way to start entering data? Basically, I'm going to start by telling you any way is the best way. There is not any particular order that you have to put the data in. Every yellow box here is a field. It's a data entry field. You can put in the information. If I put in information in this field, everywhere else this field appears is going to have the information that I put in. So I've just changed Kim to Kimberly, and we're in the child support and maintenance data section. And I can go down to parties and children, go to the children's section, and you can see that this is already changed to Kimberly because it's the same field. So I never have to enter data twice if it's in the same field. So I can start on my data entry. And if I'm doing it myself, I like to start with assets and debts after probably putting in the parties' names and the children's names. Because when you're doing assets and debts, there are cash flow items that would come along with the asset or the debt. So here we have an index fund. It's got $87,000 in it. That's the asset. It also throws off $900 a year of income. So now when I decide who's getting it, that income is going to go to the party who is getting that part of the asset. And therefore it could change support because they have a different income level. This also applies to debts, although probably won't affect support. It will affect the budget and the net income after support and maintenance and taxes for the party to live on. So this is, to me, an easier way to enter, but you can also just, start with income and expense and put in the information there. But when you're putting in monthly income, instead of putting in the income, and I'm going to go down here to miscellaneous income, where it's going to give me all like the income from assets, I can do it. It'll automatically be there if I've entered the monthly income from the asset already. So that is really helpful. Gross monthly income. We've got the wage-like income, business income. Here you have your other income from assets. And if we scroll down, here's those bank accounts or investment accounts that we had. And here's that $900 of income. So you can enter it here, or you can enter it in the assets and liabilities section, assets and debts. But here's the thing. We also have a little section where you can just put in the income from assets, like on a tax return. But right here, sorry, here you have interest income, dividend income, tax-free income, capital gain income. But what you want to do is really put it with the asset as opposed to in this area here. Because if you put it with the asset, when you change who gets the asset, then the money, the income is going to go with it. If you put it here, if you put it that $900 of, let's say it's dividend income here, then when you change who got the asset, you'd have to remember to go back and change that as well. So I think it's easier to only do it once. So if I'm doing client data entry, then when I create the file, I'm going to go to new. If I'm going to do the entry myself, I can click new file. If I'm going to register the client for client data entry, then I'm going to click register client, not new file. It's going to make kind of a blank file for the client to enter data in on the cloud. So I would put in their name, their spouse's name, or their partner's name, and then I can give it a file name. This is new. So, maybe Smith, Sam, and Sally, I can put that in. That's now going to be the name. So whatever your naming convention for your client files, you would do it here. Smith, Sam, marriage of is maybe the way you want to title it, or whatever, however you title it. Okay, and then you would click register client. When you do that, it's going to trigger some emails. It's going to trigger an email to the client to give them instructions on how to start entering their data. And it's going to give trigger an email to the licensed user who sent that email, who registered that client. And that is going to allow you, just tell you that you've confirm that you've sent that client data link. That way you can go back later and save the email in the client matter so that you know that you've done that. When they open it and start working in it, you will get a second message. I'm going to just change files and then I'm going to change it back. I have to remember to do this. I'm going to go to one where I have a client file, and when they start working on it, then you will get, that will trigger an email to the licensed user saying that client has started working on their data entry. I always laugh because the client's been telling me for weeks that they've been working on it. And of course they haven't. So when I get that email, I know that they have in fact started working on it, and my railing at them has worked. Then when they are done, they will click done for now, and you will get an email letting you know that the data is ready for you to look at. For those who want to, you can go to now data as client sees it, the page I'm on now. This is what they're going to see when they register and open it up. They're going to be able to enter their data, and there's sections for each person. And they put in all the information, or as much as they have, and then they can mark it done. They can mark each section done. They can mark the whole top level section done. And when they've got these all done, then they can click done for now, and that sends you an email. And then you would just open their file in File Manager, like I just did. My internet apparently is slow right now. So I'm going to reopen that file that we were just looking at before, so that we can work with some real data. And now we're going to go back into the support and maintenance data. A lot of people start there because they want a quick, maybe it's during a consultation, initial consult with the client, or maybe they're, just getting a handle on the case. Once you have the information in there from the client, then it's ready to use, because everybody knows that when the clients enter the data, just like now when they fill out whatever paper you give them to fill out, that the data is absolutely complete, perfect, accurate, and they've made no mistakes, right? Of course not. So when I get their data when I get the notice that their data is ready for me to look at, what I like to do is generate 2 reports. And to do that, I go into the reports section and I go to more reports. And on that page, there are 3 subpages for lawyers, for planners, and graphs. You can use any of these you want. We just kind of group them to make it easier, but everything is available and open to you guys. So what I like to do is go to the planners page, because that has a feature that I really like, which allows me to check multiple reports and be able to combine them into one PDF automatically. So I start with the budget report, which is all the income and expense. And then I also do the property statement, which is all the assets and debts. So I'll open each report for a moment. I'll look at it. What did they do? Did they enter the data, fairly correctly? Okay. And then I can set options for the report. So as you're learning the program, explore all the reports that we have. We have dozens, and some you'll never use, and some you'll go, oh, that's a really cool report. I have to remember to use that. Or that report will really help me with the Smith case that I was just working on 20 minutes ago, or 4 hours ago, and spend 4 hours creating this report in Excel when I could have just taken the data and clicked. So learn to, kind of play around with those reports and see what's there. And also click here to set report options. So on the top of almost every report, you're going to see options, which is not going to change the data, but is going to change what shows in the report. So I can show income and expenses, or I can just show expenses, or I could just show income. I can include or not include the maintenance and child support as income and expense. So initially, I'm not going to include it because I don't have enough information to really do that accurately anyway. Plus, it would probably give the client a heart attack before you got them acclimated to what that was going to look like. So you can change it. You can have just one party or both parties, weekly, annual, monthly. So you have lots of report options. And now I'm going to go back. And so here's my report, and there's different ways to have it. So all this blue is just to tell you information. Those things won't show on the printed report or the PDF report. Okay, so I'm going to go back now to my list. I do the same thing for the property statement. I can set options for that as well. And those options make the report better for how you're using it. And then I just PDF those to the client. So within 5 minutes of getting the notification that they've entered their data and ready for you to review it, you can have these 2 reports generated in an email to the client and move on to the next thing. You know, I like to think of managing family law cases as sort of a game of ping pong or tennis or catch. You catch the ball, you know, do something with it, and you throw it back to the other side or to your client. And then, you know, the file gets parked over on the side of your desk until it's time to play a receive again. And you just keep going back and forth like that, right? That's how the rhythm of family law cases. So you've got all this information. Now there's going to be changes. So you got 2 options with the changes. You can just tell them to go back in and make the changes, and they will, and then click done again, and you'll get another email that they're done. Or you can lock that file so they can't make any changes. Because we do not have red lines or revision marking. So you won't know everything that they've changed if they've made a lot of changes. So I like to lock it and let them tell me what changes need to be made because I'm a bit of a control freak. But sometimes if I trust the client enough, I will let them just make the changes. Okay. And that's also a new feature in the new file manager. So now I have their information, and if I was ready for it, I could just go and generate the sworn financial statement. Bim, bam. You don't have to do anything else. We have some options for how that's gonna look on the financial statement, and then you can just pull it up and review it, and all the information is already entered in here. You can play around with it, edit it if you need to, but remember that if it's a blue field, you are not changing the underlying data. You are overwriting the data and changing it only for this purpose. It's going to turn red, and then it's not going to change the underlying data, but it could mess up other reports if there was one that pulled from this report. So from the sworn financial statement, I don't think there is anything, but from some of the worksheets, it might change other data. So keep track of what you're redlining or editing here, overwriting, because if you get weird results later, it could be because you overwrote something. And to change it back, all you have to do is delete what you have overridden, and it will automatically go back to the original value because we're not changing that. If it is a yellow data field, you can make the changes, and then that will change the data in the program. So for this label, we could say, you know, instead of other, we could say Ford vehicle payments, and that will now be the new data in that field. So you can just go ahead and generate your sworn financial statement, and the certificate of compliance will autofill with your information so that you would know what that was going to look like. Okay, so anything that's yellow, we don't care if you type it over. Just be careful about the blue fields that are already prepared because it's going to change It's not going to change, rather, the underlying data. Okay, so now you've got the data either from your entry or the client. I wanted to show you two other things about data entry in general. One is that we have the ability to footnote and to add, oh, one other thing on the sworn financial statement, you can put in, let's go back to that. Sorry, reports, sworn financial. When I pull it up, you can put in a note for each section. So I like to call those explanatory or exculpatory notes. So for example, when we look at monthly expenses, maybe you want to put in a note saying, here's our note. These are estimates, no documentation in petitioners, or whichever this is, possession, right? So it gets you to the point where if there's something wrong, you can say, well, I said that it was an estimate. So it makes it not goofy. And you can click on the little note box here to go in and type the note. You can make a note bold so it really shows up on the printout. And if you wrote the note and now you want to change it, you can just delete it and it will go away. And you can start over with, if you don't like that note. Or maybe later in the case, you want to generate a new financial statement that is updated and you don't need that note anymore. Okay, so a couple of things about the data entry that I sort of skipped over to come back to. When you're entering data, let's go into the bank accounts again, the cash accounts. You will see footnotes. That's the little blue square with the comment bubble. And you will see more info, which is the green square with the 3 dots. Be careful about the red one. That's the delete button with the trash can. So you have footnotes that you can put in for the income part of this, or for the asset part of this. So when I put in a footnote, I can basically put in any text I want. And as long as it will fit in there, if it's too long to fit in there, it probably shouldn't be a footnote. And then we can mark an entry as estimated. So it puts a little EST next to the number on your printout. So for example, a house value, or maybe you don't really know what's in the JP Morgan account. So you can say it's estimated, you're guessing, you're rounding, whatever. And you can also put in private text. So I might want to say something like, double check this, and make it a reminder. And I'm going to now go to the only place you're going to see reminders, because they will not print as footnotes, is to go into reports, more reports. And at the top of the page on the planner's page, or at the bottom of the page on the lawyer's page, you can view footnotes. And here you see we have a footnote and a reminder. So I can click on the blue box again. It's like a hyperlink to the footnote. And now I've double checked it. I'm going to make it not a reminder and take out my private text. So this way you can have language to each other. And, as a paralegal is working on it, if you want the attorney to check something or to know something, you can put it in there, and vice versa. Now, when I click save, that footnote has become a footnote again instead of a reminder. And when I go back to the data entry page, you can see that because there's a footnote in there, the little comment bubble is filled in. So you can see that there is a footnote. when clients are entering the data, they have the ability to put in footnotes, which is super handy and much easier to read than on the pieces of paper that you gave them, where they put an asterisk and an arrow and they write on the side or on the back and you can't read it. So this at least is typed out and you can read it. And then, you know, if it's something that you want to delete, you can always delete a footnote. And then there is more info. So footnotes look the same everywhere in the program. Basically the same dialog box. The green more info changes throughout the program and it's context sensitive. So here we're in the section for cash, bank accounts, and other accounts. And I can, whoops, did not want to do that. I can click on more info and it's going to ask me questions about the particular type of account that will fine tune the information for you. So is there a lien against the account? What's the date of valuation? Very often with accounts, it's so helpful to have the date when you've got the account statement and you're taking the number off an account statement, throw the date in, then you know in a hot glance whether you need to update information or not. So if I put this, that this was from the 2/28/2021 bank statement or something, then when I go to my bank, when I go to my property statement, let's go back to that number 17 property statement, that date is there. So I can see at a glance, I might have to update that number. So I find that very helpful in practice. Okay, back to my enter data. And so these are the kinds of things that you would ask about bank accounts, including tax basis. So you can see if there's any untaxed capital gains that might impact the ultimate value of the property. You can also mark something separate property, either entirely or partially, non-marital or separate property. And that's very handy as well. And I can go into a different kind of asset. Let's go into the real estate. And if I go into more info, now we have a whole bunch of real estate related information to fine tune it. So is there a second mortgage? No. Okay, I don't need any information about it. But if there is, I can click yes. And now it's going to allow me to put in all the information about the second mortgage. So it's really helpful to have that more info to fine tune what you have and make your results that much more accurate and complete. Now, when the clients are entering data, they don't have most of the more info fields. They will have a few on certain things because it's just easier to collect the data from them that way. But there's really no way that they're going to know if something is marital, non-marital. We don't want them making those assumptions because, you know, the pension is mine. Of course, it's non-marital. I earned it, which doesn't, you know, fly, at least not in Illinois, and I'm pretty sure not in California. I mean, Colorado. So here we go in these enter data pages. I just want to show you one more thing very quickly. We can do a pension value, a present value for a pension. And I can either do it from the assets and debts page, or I can just go into the pension plan page and it'll give you a present value. It'll give you the coverage fraction. There's all kinds of things that are accurate or inaccurate about it, depending on the assumptions that you make. But remember, of course, that a present value of a pension is always just a guess anyway. The two main variables are the interest rate or discount rate and which mortality table to use. So, you know, the rest are facts. but those are two assumptions built in. And we have some help and more information on that. It's good for negotiations. It's good for looking at, does it make sense to trade this off? Recent one I had, for example, I had a woman who had taught for like maybe 3 years before the marriage, and they'd been married for 20 years. And she had this little teacher's pension from when she was a teacher. And maybe she was going to get a couple $100 a month out of it. By doing the present value, as well as looking at that flow of income. The husband in that case agreed to just let her keep it because it wasn't worth enough to fight over. But there are some pensions at another one where the guy wanted to trade off his police pension, and he was a captain of a suburban police department. And his lawyer says, well, why don't we try and trade off the pension for something else so he can keep his pension? Because cops always want to keep their pensions. And at least here they do. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's not going to work. They don't have enough assets for that. And he's like, oh, yeah. And then I did a present value for him. And he was like, oh, yeah, maybe not. And one of the things I did was to say, okay, these are the assumptions. We can look at all the different assumptions. So here's your pension value. And if I change the mortality table, so let's use the Colorado one, you're going to really change the present value of the pension. Does that really mean anything? Ultimately, no, because we don't know when the person's going to die. So we don't know what's really going to be worth in real dollars, but in present value dollars, it certainly makes a difference. Okay, so that's our data entry. We are about 20 minutes more. If there is anything that you guys for sure want me to cover, just throw it in the chat or the Q&A. And if there's anything that I've done that isn't clear, please feel free to either unmute and ask. I think you can do that, or just put it in the chat or the Q&A, and I'll try and keep an eye on it. It'll pop up if you do that. So let's look then at what you do with the information once you get it. So we've already gone over this. Oh, well, we really haven't gone over the support guidelines. So the support guidelines worksheet is your Colorado form, and it autofills, gives you all that lovely information. And you can change the header and footer if you need to with the basic information. We also have a maintenance worksheet, which gives you the maintenance calculation if you've entered in the data for that, or you can not use it. And we could go back into enter data, go into the support maintenance data page, and I'll go over that next. But I can go down to the spatial maintenance, the spousal maintenance page. And here is a checkbox to have the program calculate maintenance. If I don't want to do that, I'm negotiating some other amount, I can uncheck this. The box here turns from blue with a number in it already to yellow with no amount in. And then whatever amount you put in here, so let's say I put in $2,500 a month. When I go to, for example, my analysis support impact, it's going to use the $2,500. Or if I go into the report and the budget report, it's going to, oh, I didn't include the maintenance. Let's include the spousal maintenance and child support. It's going to include that in the budget report as well at that $2,500 level. And if I went back and changed it to be the calculated number, now it's going to use that 3,500 number in all of the reports and calculations. And of course, that impacts support as well. Okay, so let's then look at our reports again. So we've gone over the support guideline report. Let's talk about the support guideline page. So the child support and maintenance data page, we have a couple of different ways to start entering the data. we have a quick page. So anything you've put in already in this section will show up. And then this will just have, in addition, some fields that really only relate to child support and maintenance to get a complete and accurate calculation. So overnights obviously impact support. So that is in this section. If you know the overnights, you put it in here in the fields, or if you don't, you can click the little bed icon here and you can put in the schedule. So there's 1 overnight during the week and 2 overnights every other week on the weekends. And now we've got a 28.49% overnights or 104 total overnights for the non-custodial or non-majority time parent. But maybe there's a few other overnights between vacations and holidays. So maybe we'll give him another 10. Now he's up to 31. Big whooping deal, right? And then if I click OK, it is now going to insert that, sorry, it popped down, insert that number into the overnights. So now we've got Blake with 114. The other child, you can do the same thing, or you can just put in the number. And I only have to put in one of the numbers. It's all automatically going to change Taylor's number here as well. So this is a quick child support, no complexities. Okay. Put in the children, the overnights, you put in the wages, you put in the health insurance and childcare if that's relevant. You deal with the spousal maintenance, and then bam, you can just go right to the support worksheet. And at the top of the screen here, it's going to give you a running total. So if I change the overnights, let's give Blake 150 overnights for both kids. And you can see that the support amount, bam, changed down to 842 because of the income shares and overnight shared parenting formula. So there you go. But let's say you've got a case where there's some complexity to it, even if it's just they have more than one job, or there's children not of the marriage. And you can do that here. If the child is not a child of the relationship, you can put that in, but you can go to the complete page. And now this is all of the sections with all of the kinds of information that we need for complete and accurate calculation. So we open children, and now we're able to say, okay, well, this child is not a child of the relationship, and it's really Blake's child, and the child lives elsewhere. Okay. So now this child is not going to count as a child for support in this relationship, but will be able to impact it if you have a multifamily discount or adjustment, which I believe you do. So if I say that he's paying $400 a month for that child, it has changed our support amount. And I take it out, and the support amount changes back again. Okay. And then you can put in the shared custody or split custody. With wages, you can put in a second wage. Wrong section, sorry. I can put in another employer, and I can change the filing status and any other tax aspects, which changes net income, which impacts support. We can look at all the other adjustments and deductions, additional income, excluded income, all of the pieces of your support calculation. Okay. It's hard with these webinars because I don't see any faces. And plus you guys are all at one, looking at a TV screen, not really looking at a computer. So I don't see any questions from you. So I'm gonna keep going to the last couple of things that I want to cover. And then, of course, if you have questions, let me know. We're going to look at the analysis tools. So you have property in there and you want to divide it. Let's look at, so the reports allow you to have a marital property division report. I like to think of this as the end result, who's getting what, and how you get there. You can get there through the analysis tab, divide property, and this gives you a nice balance sheet with all of the assets, and you can move them around. You can move them around by percentage, and it will automatically fix the other side of the balance sheet to conform, or you can move something around by dollar amount, and it will automatically calculate the percentages. So that is really helpful. And this is only going to show the marital assets on this page because that's all we're dividing. But we do have reports that will give you non-marital assets as well. Now, let's say here we're at a 44-55 split, and I want a 50-50 split or some other percentage. I can show how far the parties are. I apologize. With one click. So I can give Taylor 55%, or I can give her 50%, and it will tell me how much we're off from 50-50. And then I can either move assets around to get to that. So maybe let's make this 100,000 she's going to get out of the house. And now we're down to 19,000 balance. Now I can leave that as an equalization payment, or I can move another 19,000 over here to Taylor. And now we're down to just $331. And, you know, maybe you ignore that, or you say she's going to get $331. So now 50-50 exactly. And, or sometimes you're off by $1 because of rounding. And she's going to get 79,331 or 91% of this S&P 500 index fund. The percentages are good for assets that fluctuate in value. It's really handy. Now, I can also look at it by asset class. So if I wanted to say 50-50 on retirement, but a different percentage of non-retirement, or maybe a different percentage on the debt, I could move things around to accomplish the division that I want. What if you're still negotiating the division? You don't know what you want. You can look at a property division scenario. So you start with this one. So you have one version of a division, and then go into property division scenarios. And that version is the actual. It's always the first column to start. And then you can just add scenarios, and you can change who gets the house, or you can change values and play around with the different possibilities in the division of the marital estate. And it will give you the values here, the percentages. And it also has the ability to put labels in for each scenario. So remember, you've got the actual, and then as many scenarios as you want or need to play around with. And let's say now we figured it out and we like scenario 2 for whatever reason. I can swap scenario 2 with the actual. Just click on it, click OK. And now it's going to literally flip those two columns. And this is now the actual, and what's going to show up on that final report worksheet that I showed you with that $400,000 value that we put into that scenario. So it's very cool tool. Let's say you want to look at property on an after-tax basis, we can do that as well, both for the marginal tax rate at retirement and a current capital gains, untaxed capital gains. That will allow you to look at the retirement after tax, and also if you have untaxed capital gains. Of course, for capital gains, it's going to look at basis. If you don't know the basis, you won't get any capital gains calculation, or it'll take the basis as zero. And if you are looking at the marginal tax rate of retirement, there are a bunch of assumptions built into what the income is going to be at retirement for that tax rate. So, and those is our advanced training, which we offer monthly. If you feel like signing up for that, it gets a little sophisticated there. Okay, now let's talk about support. Sometimes you want to look at different variables for support. So we have this nice little support impact report, which gives you sort of what I call the income shift. Here's what they had before, here's the maintenance and child support, and here's what they're going to have after. You can include or not include the living expenses. It's one of the options. So I'm going to not show the living expenses. And then when I go back, the report just ends at the percent of combined. And I can also do an expanded report, which for those of you who are ancient like I am might remember FinPlan. So the layout of this report is sort of based on FinPlan, and it gives you a little more detail for that report. And we have, just like we had for property division, we have side-by-side what ifs on support. So you can do different overnights, or you could do different incomes. Maybe you want to do one with same overnights, but what happens if he gets the $20,000 bonus or the $100,000 bonus? And again, you can swap any of the columns. So if you want this to be the actual, and label them, because once you start swapping, you won't remember if you're like me. What the which scenario was which, if you have a lot of different scenarios. So you can label them so you don't forget, and then do the same swap feature, and it's going to literally flip the two columns. And now what was the actual scenario one, what was scenario one is now the actual, and that is what's going to show up on your child support worksheet. Okay. Now, if you want to do alimony other than, or maintenance, other than the guideline, we have a couple of ways to do that. We can go to, in the spousal maintenance section, we can go to more, go to spousal maintenance break even. And this will tell me what she needs to break even. Obviously, I don't have a lot of expenses in this report. So, and child support would be higher than we were looking at before, but if there was no maintenance, but that is, but if I had a different scenario, it would give me the dollar amount that you need for her to break even. And sometimes that works. Oftentimes it doesn't, because their expenses aren't exactly accurate. So we have a couple other ways of looking at spousal maintenance. We can say, how much after-tax income do you want the person to have? And we'll tell you how much spousal maintenance is needed to achieve that. So we want mom here to have $90,000 a year. She's going to need $5,000 in maintenance. $7,000 a year, she's going to need $2,600 in maintenance. So on and on. So you can do side-by-side scenarios, show another column, or hide it. And we have the detailed report or the expanded report for each of those scenarios. And of course, you can PDF or print any page in the program if you want a report. Now, sometimes we don't know what the desired dollar amount would be after tax for the recipient, but we know we want to divide the available after tax income. So we have a balance incomes page. Again, side-by-side scenarios. You can try different percentages and it will tell you how much maintenance is needed to give the people, to give the person that level of support. Oops, she's never going to get 90. I meant to do 40. This will tell you how much maintenance you need to get to that level of income split. These 2 pages don't have that swap feature. It may be coming soon, I hope. And we also do a present value of the maintenance buyout. So I can use the actual amount and it'll show me the present value because maintenance is currently not taxable and probably will continue to be non-taxable. The only real variable here is the discount rate. So if I want to try out different discount rates, I can see what that does to the present value. And also, this is using a 20-year T-bill rate, just a T-bond rate, just like the pension discount rate would be as well. Okay, so that is a good overview of the program. There are things I have not been able to cover in an hour. Plus, I don't want your brains to explode. So are there any questions? Anything? We have a few more minutes because we started a little bit late. And I always leave a couple of minutes at the end for questions and special information. So is there anything I didn't cover that you wanted me to cover or that I covered too quickly and you want me to go back over? Okay, thank you, Jay. I hope this answered all of your concerns and that you will be happy family law software users from now on. But certainly if you have questions or there's anything that you want to run through, sometimes there are wrinkles that come up in cases that are weird, please feel free to reach out to us, support@familylawsoftware.com, or you can reach out to me directly. I'm more than happy to go through anything with you guys. So take care. Have a good rest of your afternoon.